Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these Office Hours sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We have a bunch of questions to go through, as you can see, which have been submitted. But if there's anybody on the call that would like to submit any questions, feel free to flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, we usually have SEOs on the call. Please feel free to share your perspectives. I think that's one of the best things about SEO Office Hours is not just us talking, but also everybody else sharing. Like every week, with me today is Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Hey Joe, morning.
Hello, good morning, and hello everyone for joining us live. If you'd like to write in the chat where you're joining us from, we had a very international SEO office hours yesterday. Yeah, there's been a very busy week here in search. Obviously, there was Google I/O, and I believe today is, of course, Search Africon. It is today, and it was a sellout. So congrats to Ebera for organizing that. She's normally joining us live. So yeah, today, very excited to have two special guests on our show today. We have Shelley Walsh and Luke Gosha. I'm very pleased to have Shelley on the show today. I've known Shelley for some time. She was a writer for State of Digital. And actually now she runs YouTube interviews called SEO Pioneers, all about the history of SEO. She's had many people on her show, which she runs about once a month. She's had John Mueller, Barry Schwartz, Dixon Jones, just to name a few. So I'll share the link in the chat. And I'm really happy to have Luke Gosha as well. So Luke actually was at Brighton SEO last month, if anybody came to Brighton SEO. And hopefully he'll be there next month too. He is working as a senior SEO consultant at Radico, which is an organic search engine, organic search agency. He's fully remote at Radico. And he's been in the industry over 9 years. And in his free time, he likes to take part in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's quite a tough sport. Congrats on that, Luke. And so welcome, Luke and Shelley, for coming here today. Shelley has actually been working in the industry for over 25 years in different aspects, creative, marketing, and tech. And she been in the last 15 years, been published extensively across different industry publications as well. And she works with Search Engine Journal as their SEO content strategist. So if you have any questions for Shelley, please put it in the chat. But I'll share both of their LinkedIn profiles in a moment. So back over to you, Mike.
Great, awesome. Let's crack on. I'm going to take a couple so I don't have to keep going back and forth. Okay, with regards to when you have test websites, what do you generally advise? At the moment, ours just has rel canonical tags to the correct version of the page on the live website. Shouldn't that be enough to stop any issues? Who would like to kick off?
I can take that one.
Go for it. Super.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So test sites and staging environments, it's important to remember what they're used for. So some clients or websites will use them for publishing releases before they go live. So essentially, you don't want Google or users to be able to come across or find these test sites. So by applying the rel canonical, you're allowing Google to crawl it, to understand the relationship between that and the main site. And my preference here would be to not do that. Google kind of doesn't always respect the canonical that's set, so it's not a definite. So I would suggest, disallowing that, putting some type of HTTP authentication in place so it's hidden behind a username password. Only people within the organization should have access to that. And essentially, you don't want Google to crawl it anyway. But if any of your test site pages are being indexed, you'll obviously, before doing that, want to apply the no index, make sure it's removed from the index, and then go ahead, block via robots.txt, apply HTTP authentication, and deal with it that way. That would be my preference.
Great, perfect. Shelley or Joe, do you have anything to add?
I don't think there's much really to add to that. I mean, my preference has always been to gate this, because you say, you don't want people to come across them, but at the very least, add a no index tag. That would be the bare minimum that I would do.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good interaction in the chat. Thanks very much, everyone. Simon, he advocates about putting a pre-release test behind a password, stops any crawling, as you said, Luke. John's shared us in the link, shared in the chat a link to, yeah, basically some staging sites that have been crawled, naughty sites. So thanks, John, for that. And so I'm just mentioning also, you don't want competition crawling your new site because some SEOs have to find them. Yes, great. Some great chats there. Thanks, everyone.
Great. So the answer there is don't use the rel canonical. That's what I've got from all of those, and I totally agree.
Yes.
Okay, next question. Look at us flying through. We're already through our first one.
Don't say it. Don't jinx it. Yeah.
Okay, with several old subdomains indexed by Google, should we delete them, implement redirects, or request Google to ignore them in Google Search Console? Joe, what are your thoughts?
Why? I would say, how do you know you're going to ask? I wouldn't. How did
Sorry, I know
you're
you
gonna
did
ask
two
me?
things at once there.
Yeah, two things. One. First of all, actually, I would say if you have lots of old subdomains, just have a look and see if they've actually driving any more traffic. Just give an assessment because there might be some old sites that maybe you'd forgotten about. I'm sure many of you guys do have some domains that maybe once upon a time drove traffic. You might want to think if you want to refresh it or not. If you do want to get rid of it, then probably best to, if it's relevant, do a redirect. If that's what you're doing, a rebranding, for example, you may want to do that. And then in terms of requesting Google to ignore the Google Search Console, I actually haven't come across that yet. I haven't done it myself. I might be doing it with a new recent site. So that's something that I will look into doing. But what I've done in the past is I've redirected it where relevant to it, or in some cases for some pages, I've 410 those pages. But happy to hear from other people as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, actually. Looking at the subdomain and seeing if it's getting traffic is always a good shout. I'd also say look at the subdomains and see if there's any kind of historical, decent kind of backlinks pointing to those of relevance. And if so, then try to look to move these subdomains to other related site areas of the main site. From what I know about Search Console, I think it's only a temporary removal. So it won't be a long-term solution. So yeah, check the backlink profile, see if there's any kind of good authority going to any of those subdomains, and try and find somewhere to place that if there is a nice relevant related area on the main site. 301 to those.
Great. Shelley, do you have anything to add?
Not really anything to add to that. The only question that came to me straight away was, for what reason are you wanting to redirect the subdomains? You didn't actually say that as to whether it was they are live subdomains, and your question is, should I be using subdomains, which is a whole different world to going altogether, or is it just that they're old ones that you're basically cleaning house? As Luke said, check to see if you've got backlinks on there before you move anything across. But yeah, basically redirect sounds about right in that situation.
Great. Joe, is there anything in the chat?
Yeah, John was saying about SC removals, just hide the URLs in search. They don't change indexing. When you request that, okay, they don't change indexing. So yeah, you need to resolve that. But yeah, that's a good point that you said, Shelley. Yeah, why would you want to? We didn't have as much context for this question.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I see quite a lot, though, when I first start working with somebody in their websites. Subdomains, particularly old ones, are often areas that just get missed and forgotten about. And actually, it's quite common for companies to almost grow their websites through subdomains, especially if they're doing campaigns and things like that, rather than actually on their main domain. So it's really good that they're even recognizing that they've got all these old subdomains and they want to do something with it. So I'm guessing the main, just to summarize, so it's delete if not important and redirect if it is based on, like we were talking about, if it's got any kind of historical authority or anything useful. And if you're redirecting, ideally moving what was interesting onto the main site rather than just randomly redirecting it. Joe, sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, no, it was a point that Luke that he mentioned. Obviously, if you're redirecting or if you have a look at the backlinks, it's always good to, if you can, maybe you can contact those people and see if you can get a link to your new site instead of redirecting that link.
Cool. Okay, next question. I'm going to put two together because they're quite similar, and feel free to answer both or just choose one. So question number one, have your daily workflows overall strategy changed with the advancement of AI? And question number two, how much do you see Google SGE/AI overview changing your overall strategy? Shelley, how would you feel starting off on this one? Is that all right?
I think this is something we could probably talk about for the next 10 hours and still have more to say on it. Very topical, considering what's been going on this week. Workflows, how workflows have changed. We've known this was coming for a long time. AI has been integrating. ChatGPT was it nearly 18 months ago. It burst onto the scene, and it was just everything's been a bit crazy ever since. In terms of integrating workflows, I think what's really important to remember with AI is, at the end of the day, it's a tool, and it's not taking over and dictating how SEO is done in terms of the tool isn't in the driving seat. We need to be in the driving seat with the tool. So my workflow hasn't actually changed dramatically in terms of I perhaps use a few tools just to help me with a few tasks. But in terms of actual workflow, my process still remains the same. I've tested using things like ChatGPT for research, and as a research tool, it just doesn't work. It's not effective. It's very confident in its answers, which are generally, there's a lot of misinformation in there. And if you don't know your subject, then you're in a lot of trouble. In my role as what I do, which is obviously a lot of research, a lot of writing, a lot of content strategy, a lot of planning, I still have to rely on my knowledge and my experience to drive that. So a lot of my workflow process hasn't changed in terms of looking at how SGE is going to change strategy moving forward. At the moment, it's really fluid, and I think there's a lot of experimentation going on. It's so new with the AI overviews that have come in. We're not really sure how this is going to impact. I think what looks like is going to change at the moment is your main kind of top of the funnel head keywords for your really high volume stuff, which historically has been great for anybody who's on a programmatic or a display ad revenue model. That's been a really strong part of their business model to target really high volume keywords at the top of the funnel. And also in terms of brand awareness, it's been really good for brand awareness. It's the whole marketing classic of brand recall. So the more places that your brand can get exposure, the better. But in terms of actual conversion, those kind of keywords have never been about keyword conversion or money keywords. So I've got a theory that I think a few things can happen. I think your traffic is going to drop in terms of, because these high volume keywords, if you're targeting those, then you're going to see your traffic reduce dramatically, but potentially your conversions might not change. So what's interesting here is it's a bit of a shift in mindset of, I know a lot of people still target volume keywords in their strategy, but I've always been an advocate as well of supplementing that and making sure you focus on actually your conversion. So you got to look at your business model, your end game, which is to get to a set point of conversion, working back from that. I think you're going to start to distill this down to a short answer. I think you're going to see a lot of fluff traffic removed. You're going to see a lot of traffic that wasn't bringing any value is going to drop away. So you might be seeing huge traffic drops, which is going to be a panic. But keep your eye on your conversion and start really doubling down and going for those long tail keywords and your bottom of the funnel keywords, which are going to be more important. And also, I've always been a massive advocate of thought leadership content and getting outside of chasing high volume keywords. And the more that you can do unique research, the more that you can do data driven, which is what I specialize in, that kind of content that's what AI is not going to be able to replicate in your AI overviews. They're still going to need to pull in citations and information from people who are producing that kind of content. So that's the area that I would really focus on. That's what I've been focusing on for years, is being more of a thought leader and producing really in-depth content So as a short answer, a short summary, check out your keywords and have a look where AI overviews are appearing. That's where you're going to potentially see huge traffic drops, and then start really focusing on the bottom of the funnel stuff where you can still compete and keep an eye on your conversions rather than chasing volume keywords.
Great. Luke, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, when it comes to workflows and using AI, I spoke at Brighton last month and I mentioned how the premise of the talk was really how we can use AI as an apprentice and we act as the coach or mentor. So, in terms of my workflows, I've found great success with using AI, but the key for me is not looking for the next big, shiny automation. I'm just looking at those small incremental ways to make my life easier and for me to spend more time being strategic rather than putting data together and trying to make sense of that data. I can get to a point where I can take that data in a way that has been organized and start to really silo my efforts into areas that are going to have an impact. Yeah, I've just had those small incremental wins with optimizing my workflows when it comes to using tools like ChatGPT. In terms of AI overviews and overall strategy, my thoughts are that as long as you're doing the fundamentals right, you shouldn't have to worry. Like I still believe that links will matter in terms of being referenced and cited. Creating quality content, if you're using evidence-based, research-based content, that's gonna, be fruitful. And like we said, we can speak for hours about AI overviews. I think they are getting a bit of a bad rap at the moment. And my thoughts, I've got a theory. I don't know if it's correct or not, but my theory is perhaps that maybe Google are anticipating future sort of behavior change. And with us living in an AI world in the future, perhaps Google are thinking, oh, maybe users are going to be consuming media or searching in a different way. And one of the key things that I saw from the AI overview videos was that actually we're moving into a world perhaps where we're not just searching, it's more so prompt searching. And maybe that's the new thing to think about in the future, because that's what I got from looking at those videos of the AI overviews. And yeah, that's my gut feeling around how the AI overviews could evolve over time, and perhaps that behavior change. This is Google's anticipation of people changing their way of searching. So yeah, that's my hunch at the moment. Don't know if it's true or not, but it's a different view to what I'm seeing on SEO Twitter and things in the industry at the moment. I think there's been a bad rap about the AI overview so far, but I like to take a more positive view on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity on Twitter at the moment, isn't there, around AI? Definitely. Sorry, Shelley, were you going to say something?
I was just giving counter. That was a really interesting point you made, Luke, about the prompts. And actually, I think I've always historically done a lot of keyword research. I've got a lot of experience doing it. And what I'm seeing now is, I think what's happening is the converging, say ChatGPT and search engines. It looks like we're getting some level of conversion. And with the AI overviews, this is what is bringing it together. And I think looking at using prompts, using that prompt mentality, users are going to start to search more in that way. And I think this is what Google is trying to push us towards, to have more sophisticated key phrase or prompt searching. So it's bringing those together and actually having an integration of how people are prompting. I think you can imagine what the end game is really. It's that combination of integrating ChatGPT into Google search. That looks like where we're heading. And as people are going to get more sophisticated in how they use the prompts, I think probably the whole basis of search will be fundamental. Instead of it being traditional keyword research, it's almost going to be like prompt research.
Yeah, because I also I liken it to when a point in time when all web pages were short, people were concerned in-house were concerned about making pages really long. But as we've got used to using kind of social media and different platforms, we're used to scrolling, right? So no one now is worried about long pages or anything like that. And we're used to scrolling. That's a behavior change that's happened. And as individuals start to use prompts more in their day-to-day or start to use these tools, people are going to maybe take that behavior and kind of approach search in a similar sort of way. So I think this is Google anticipating behavior change. Some would argue it's them trying to get the one up or trying to compete with OpenAI, but this is all leading to the direction of an AI world. And will start to prompt more, and our behaviors in search will start to be more prompt-esque as well. So that's my gut feeling at the moment. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting space.
I think the tools really, I think AI, I think Google is really trying to drive the user behavior. I think you're right there. Google's in the driving seat and they're trying to push people towards adopting this new way, as they did when Google first came out 25 years ago, and nobody really knew how to search, and they didn't know how to. Originally, it was just short keywords. And then as over time, users became more adept. They expanded their key phrases, and it's just a progression of that. But I think what is going to happen, as you say, AI is becoming more, it will become seamlessly integrated in our lives across all of our devices and the way that we will use our phone. I think particularly like e-commerce is going to be hit really hard, where when people are searching, they will like the circle to search, they will use their phone, and they will like the AI assistant, and it will be, find me some black trainers in Leeds in a size 5 that I can pick up in an hour. And it will become very sophisticated, and it'll be straddle across using assistants with search in Google, where I think we started to see this to a degree where when social media, about 10 years ago, we were seeing with people that integration of people using live, or as they were watching things on TV, or with those kind of cross-channel experiences, search started to straddle channels. And I think AI is that progression of that, where it'll become more seamless in our lives. So like the whole way we search is going to change. Some of the fundamentals I think will stay the same, but I think whatever vertical you're in, you're going to have to consider how that's going to impact your specific vertical, because they're all going to be different. For example, I do a lot of work in news for SEJ. That's going to be completely different to how an e-commerce business is going to be hit. Or for example, travel businesses, I think they're going to be hit really hard by AI, because AI is going to answer, AI is going to become that, AI overviews are going to become that assistant, which is going to provide you with a full itinerary of how to achieve. Like you want to go on a journey, AI will tell you exactly how to do it, and eventually it will probably book it all for you in one go. And then like recipe sites are going to be completely wiped out as well, because this is where AI overviews are excelling. Anything where it is a kind of Google tell me how to do this in process steps, that's what AI overview is going to show. So what you need to do for moving forward in your strategy is to really consider, how is it impacting my vertical specifically? Because they're all going to fragment. I think they're all going to be very different moving forward. It's like trying to do it for SEJ, for news search, it's completely different how I'm doing it for other clients. It's exciting times.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I just thought you showed a lot, and so did you, Luke. So I won't add anything else. But I would like to just refer back to the chat, because we've got loads of people interacting about this questions. And also, first of all, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us live. We've got Ruth over in Brisbane, Anna, Mohammed, John, Raquel, Neil, Minnie, Mikael over in Brazil, Monse, Mary, Ursule, Leroy as well, Simon. Thanks for joining us live. And those that are not joining us live, you can always sign up to SEO Office Hours and join us live. And if you're not joining us live, you can always click a like at the YouTube on our video and subscribe to the channel. So sorry, back to the interaction from the chat. So yeah, this is a very topical. Obviously, this was at Google I/O conference this week. And I'd also like to share this great overview from Sado, who came on the show. She did a bit of a summary, if you can do one, about AI, about the AI overview there. I've just shared it in the chat. So going back to some of what everyone's been mentioning here, Monse, like what you said, agrees with what you were saying, Shelley, like thought leadership is the way forward. Mohammed was saying, I feel AI might be helping us more instead of hurting. It's early days. In the early days, he was a bit worried, but yeah, I guess we'll just see what happens. Simon's saying, I'm really enjoying adding AI calls into crawling tools. The horsey man, and now screaming frog. Sorry, he wrote that in. Horse E-man and now Screaming Frog. So he's used those both tools, and then you get some quite interesting bulk data from it. In terms of the overall sort of workflow, nice little joke here from Simon. Can AI make me a cup of tea? No. So that is the start of all his workflow. So it depends. Some people like coffee, some people like tea, some people like juices. but AI cannot do that. So back to the other part, really regarding how we're basically using it and could it change our strategy. I'm saying that people definitely search differently nowadays. New people online do not use keyword search. They ask questions, check out people. You should check out how people enter stuff into Chat GPT. Simon's just saying, it's called Chat GPT Chatty Jeeps. That's so funny. Simon, you for all the jokes today. John just saying that in the past, we adjusted our searches to what the machine can process. And now the machine can process more normal text. New users won't need to adjust. Quite a good point there. Monsi saying about even more seasoned users are using questions on long tail because they know they have more possibilities to get an answer. Mohammed's also mentioning about AI. Yeah, this is quite a good question. Why do we discuss only ChatGPT and not Cloud Instant or other AI bots? That's quite a good one. He said he was getting more realistic results through cloud rather than ChatGPT. Interesting. Mikkel, he was on our show earlier this month. He was mentioning that he thinks it doesn't make sense to mention keywords anymore, but rather queries. Yeah, good point. Because if you use keywords or you mention keywords, it limits you to the additional type of search. And now the process may be a bit more complex. So yeah, I got a lot of interaction here from the chat about AI. And obviously there was the Google I/O conference on Tuesday that maybe some of you attended or viewed it live. So I think there's a lot really happening in the industry, but some great points from Luke and Shelley and everyone in the chat. I'll pass back to you, Mike.
Great. So from our perspective, we're like, obviously lots of people are sharing some really interesting insights and findings on places like Twitter and so on. I follow those and try and consume as much as possible. Trying really hard not to have any kind of knee-jerk reactions to what people are saying is working and isn't working, and just focus more on our original sort of strategies, which is usually about making the best possible website and content and so on, and hoping that will win in the end. But yeah, there's a lot of great things. And for example, I was reading earlier about somebody suggesting that they're finding short summaries at the top of every post is really helping with them getting featured in SGE results. The idea of going through every single blog post and changing that and then that not working at some point to me, that doesn't make sense. So instead, I'd rather put that effort into creating really good products and websites and so on. Joe, you missed one of the points in the chat, which was quite funny. So John shared a link, AI-overview-SEO.com. I thought, great, that's going to be a fantastic resource. Clicked on it, and it's a Rick Astley song saying, it's the never going to give up. Not what I was expecting. Caught me a little bit off guard. Okay.
I'm sorry. I just want to also say just go back to the process. I would say that sometimes we have been using already some sort of assistance anyway with things like the keyword tool. There's other platforms out there as well that integrate Chat GPT. I was using Inlinks. That's a really good tool for writing content briefs and internal linking analysis. And they do have Chat GPT 4 in there. I'll send a link here in the chat. And it's an invite link, and it's the $20 off when you upgrade to a paid account. Because yeah, that really did help me. So just sharing it there.
Cool. Okay, next question. I'd like to know more about physical website structure. We've been working on developing the structure of our existing website, and we're torn between a flat structure with more content on each page versus a hierarchical structure with specific pages addressing specific queries and problems. Any thoughts? Luke, are you okay to start with this one?
Yeah, I'm going to give the classic response of it depends. It depends what the website's about, really. I like the hierarchical structure, but we also have to think about what is it that we're giving to users and how can we organize our website in a way that's going to make it navigatable for users to find what they need. And one of the best SEO tactics, it's tried and tested, is internal linking. So that should formulate a great part of how you think about your website structure, how we make things accessible. And it's great to think about Google, but essentially, let's think about the user. How are we going to organize our site's content in a way that takes UX into consideration, takes users at the heart of it, and help them find exactly what they need in a nice and accessible way? So yeah, if I was to have a preference out of the box, I would go with more hierarchical, but we need to do that context finding around what it is that we're trying to offer and how we're going to organize that for users.
Great. Shelley, do you have anything to add?
I think Luke gave a really great answer there, and I would thoroughly agree with everything he said. I think what I would add to it that might help is the way I like to approach search and like a website is I think of it a bit like a librarian. And with information retrieval, which obviously underlines search, is it's like trying to find something in a library. And so that you will go to the main section first, and then you will look for the shelf, and then you will look for the specific book. I think that's probably really what the foundations of information retrieval and search were built on. So I always like to look at the fundamentals that underline everything. So when I'm structuring, if I was to structure information architecture and navigation, I always want to have a look at what are the most important topics and then drill down and put things into sections. I think it's easier for users to find, and it just needs to be an intuitive structure. I don't think it's complicated. I don't think we need to complicate things at the end of the day. We just need to consider what's intuitive and what is going to help people find what we want them to find in the easiest, quickest way.
Yeah, I really like that point, Shelley. Like that, the analogy of looking at it as a library.
Yeah.
Often, like in the past, I've used Excel just to visualize things as well. So if it's like a brand new website, taking the main nav and just thinking about that and breaking that down, and like you said, like categorizing it almost as if it's a library, can help build out branches of how you could structure your potential website. So yeah, just to say, try and visualize as well if you are planning a new website. Put it down in a way that kind of helps you visualize that structure from like an organization perspective.
What about you, Joe?
I would say what Luca and Shelley have said is great. I've said this type of comment before, that when you're sort of working on your website structure, why don't you have it tested as well by someone that's not as close to the product, family and friends, see what they like about it, or if it's really easy for them to find what they actually need on your website. It's great to always ask those that are not actually as close to the product or service as you are.
Great.
Also, sorry, just one last thing. Also, if you are planning a new structure, just think about future-proofing it as well. You don't want to end up like six months down the line, a new product or category comes in and you don't know where to put it. So yeah, try and take that forward-thinking kind of future approach, as that might be expansion, and just have that in mind when it comes to planning a structure as well.
That was going to be my point, actually, that I work on website migrations and new websites quite a lot, and people get really fixed in terms of it needs to be this perfect structure and everything needs to be boxed in certain ways and so on. And I agree that it's nice to have a pattern and a tree and so on, and it makes sense where everything goes. But I also like to think about how this website might evolve over the next five years. And what we don't want to do is put ourselves in a position where we've got to change that structure again. And obviously you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know, maybe you might be running a podcast in a year's time, or like you said, you might have different products. So it can be hard to do, but I like to try and, when I'm thinking about a new structure, I definitely like to think about how could this evolve if X happened, or if we decided to do Y. The other thing that can be quite useful, so I know this is SEO office hours, but if I'm planning out a new structure, tend to go down the route of things like tree testing and card sorting and user testing, and focusing more on, can people find the information that they're looking for? And I find tools like Optimal Workshop really good for getting users through and just making sure that the names of pages and categories and your navigation make total sense. It's because we work in the business, I find lots of internal language is used on websites, particularly in the navigation, that make complete sense to us, but outside of the business doesn't. And going through that process of card sorting, tree testing, and so on can really help. And sometimes it means putting a page in 2 different areas on the website rather than just one, for example. Cool. I think that's all I've got on it. Joe, anything else? Anything in the chat?
Yeah, just a lot of comments here. Simon saying, as Luke said, hierarchical structures are his favorite, but focus on the hierarchy the user needs, not based on your organization structure. Reese also saying that the library structure is a great analogy. And Simon saying, yeah, as in a library, put the content for the children at the bottom of the page so that they can reach it. Yeah, and some comments about, Jason did a series about how search engines were evolving in answer engines. So Jason about the search engines and worth searching for some of his content on that. And Mikael was talking about the evolution probably has gone in more the direction of recommendation systems. So TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are now recommendation systems. So that's, I think, going into sort of a separate subject, but lots of interaction here on the chat.
Great. Okay, I think I spoke too soon, didn't I? When I said, look, we're flying through them. I've got, goodness knows how many questions in front of me. It's still on the walls. Sorry about that. Okay, next question. I would like to know what sort of backlinks we should focus on. Should we be focusing on guest posting, forum backlinks? What sort of backlinks? How are people here doing link building at all, or digital PR type projects? Shelley, how would you feel about starting with this one?
Yeah, sure. I came up doing a lot of link building. Started out doing a lot of content for link building. That was my bag, and digital PR. I now do more content strategy, and I've moved away from that. But in terms of links, the way I like to look at it is, if you consider the way to approach link building is, you want to think about, you're a brand, and you want to think about all the places where you should be positioned, where your brand should be mentioned or positioned, and then start to reach out to all those areas to get links from, instead of, I'm not a huge fan of looking at any specific techniques, like the whole, should I do guest posting, should I do forum? I think you should do it if it's relevant to your brand. I don't think you should be just looking at something in terms of rolling it out on a high volume basis, because that's generally where people get into trouble. But when I'm doing link building, I want to be looking for places where I want to be positioned. At the end of the day, links originally were all about being found on the internet before search engines came along. And I think if you can keep that mentality about a link shouldn't just be for a link because it gives you some kind of benefit. It should be about, where can I position myself where I might actually get some referral from the link. But there's a lot of argument at the moment where people are saying that links are becoming less relevant. I still think that they are relevant to a degree, and I still think they potentially could be relevant moving forward. I might be proven wrong on that. I think links from the right place, where it's another site that is relevant to yours, and it has some reason to exist, I think those are really good links to still get.
Great. What about you, Luke? And any thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, links still matter. I've experienced so many cases where links have helped either drive traffic or move certain sections of the site up in ranking positions. Links for me still do absolutely matter. The key is ensuring we're acquiring links from related and relevant sites, and that they're linking to something of value. A lot of the times I've seen campaigns out there where they're quite fun, quite quirky campaigns, but the types of links that are pointing to those are not really related to the product or offering that your website is about. So yeah, going after relevant and related links is super important, and having something that is worthy of a link is also super important. So whether that's a great content piece, whether that's a data-driven piece, great quality content will essentially get linked to. So ensuring that you have something of value and not just trying to write a guest post and hoping that's going to transfer into a quality link. Or forums for me is a no-go. But yeah, it's just ensuring that you're getting links from related and relevant sites. That's hyper relevancy is super important.
Great. Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, just to go back to the question, I think they asked this question about what sort of backlink should we get, because there was a time where obviously the more links that you got, the better, or the higher you would rank. But that's been in some of the bigger search engines, something that we are not able to do for quite some time. So back to obviously what Luke and Shelley were saying, it's really about getting relevant, I would say, exposure. So where do you want to get the referral traffic from? Where is your target audience? If you don't have it on your site, if you don't have a lot of people to your site yet, what sites can you work with, or what publications can you do? Can you do like a study or a survey, which is interesting, that you can actually draw people to? And then can you actually work with other journalists or PR agencies or freelancers to help you promote your story? So it's really about moving away from, oh, I need this link, to actually, I want to get a lot of exposure, and I would do it for, ask yourself, why do you need that? What is it for? So go back to a campaign. So then it goes back to your content strategy, and your USP. What do you want to be known for? How do you want to get there? Oh, I want to be doing a study. Okay, what sites do I want that study to be referenced on, and so on. So really moving away with individual links to actually greater exposure.
Another great tactic that is somewhat underused is looking at where your brand has been mentioned. And if it's been in a publication, like reaching out and trying to convert that into a link can sometimes be a fruitful exercise. So they're already referencing you. If they can turn that into a link, obviously you don't want to be doing that if there's like a publication that's mentioning you in a negative way. But yeah, it's a great way to like just try and see if your brand has been mentioned out there, and if there's any opportunity to convert those into links, it's well worth going after.
Yeah, I think creating something of value that people actually want to link to, so that you earn that sort of coverage and links, is so important. Yesterday, we were working on a project which we're looking at, and this is purely a link building project. But to give you an example, is that we're looking at organizing a pop-up shop for this product, for this company, for their major products in Carnaby Street. And the idea is to bring customers through the door to actually experience the product, but also get journalists down there and bloggers and so on, and build a relationship with them, give them the opportunity to take photos, videos. Part of that is from the link, is from a digital PR perspective, that will earn coverage and links. And then another part of that will be from across social and stuff like that. So I think it's what I found over the last sort of 5 years is you just got to really also try and think outside the box to stand out. And we used to do a lot of, going back 10 years ago, a lot of the kind of consumer surveys with infographics and all that kind of stuff. And as time's gone on and everybody else does that stuff, you just always have to think about what can we do to make a bit of a difference. And I found events have been a really good way of doing it. And it doesn't always have to be a pop-up shop on Carnaby Street. It could be something in fact, we've done it before where we've hired the garden of a pub, and we've done, so this was for like a catering client, but we've done sort of a barbecue masterclass and got food bloggers down and stuff like that. And it's just trying to think of ways of doing things a bit differently to your competitors. I think personally, I would rather get links that way than going down the route of guest posting or directories or anything like that, which the person mentioned in the question. And I've done a lot of that on a shoestring budget as well.
Just to say one last point, Mike, and Luke as well, you mentioned you're saying you wouldn't want forum links, and no, I wouldn't go after forum links as a tactic, but there is also an argument to say, if there is a forum that is highly relevant to your niche, vertical or brand, and it might be a good idea for you to be in there, to be contributing, then I think that as an approach, if you can do it well and to be adding value to the forum, and then occasionally you could feed back links to your site or your content, I think that could work. But again, it's not scalable. And I think the issue with a lot of link building techniques, people are looking at things that are vastly scalable, whereas inherently link building, if you do it right, it's really not scalable because you've got to put a lot of effort in. And I still think that with content, everybody says produce high quality content, but you've still got to get people to find your content. So you still do need to drive people to it. You can create the best article in the world, but unless people can find it, it's not going to do anything for you. You've got to be outreaching to drive people. I still think it is a vital part of promotion of
100%.
your brand.
When we're working on link building campaigns or digital PR campaigns, the majority of the time is spent on selling in and outreach, because like you said, there's no point in putting together the content or doing a load of research or putting on these events if nobody shows up and covers it. I totally agree with that. And what you said on the forum side of things, again, that's such good advice. And I think if there's a conversation happening and your customers are there, you want to be a part of that. And I wouldn't do that to put links in there. I would do it to contribute and so on. And if you've given some value in that forum, chances are they'll click your profile and see where you're from, or that sort of thing, or it's a way of building your brand. Joe, any other thoughts in the chat or anything like that?
Not for this specific question, No, I think we've answered quite a lot. I would just say, yeah, I think we've done quite well on this subject. And I also wanted to say, if we don't have time at the end, just thanks everyone for joining us today and coming on SEO Office Hours. It's been great. And thanks also, we've got, I think, 4 continents today. I think we've got, Brazil, we've got, I think, Pakistan. That's not necessarily a continent, but I'm just saying. We've got people from everywhere. We've got Australia. We've got Europe. The only thing we don't have is we don't have North America yet. They need to come on.
I think it's just too early for North America. I'm going to try really hard. So we've got 9 minutes left. I'm going to try really hard to fit 2 questions in. So we'll try and keep this one as short as possible, if that's okay. Our client has 2 identical sitemaps. The URLs in the sitemaps are also identical. Can this be a problem, e.g., classified as duplicate content? Does anybody have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, quite strange to have 2 sitemaps exactly the same. You can, I don't see it being a huge problem, to be honest. Just double check what's been referenced in your robots.txt, double check what's been submitted in Google Search Console. And if there's a common sitemap out of the 2 that has been, submitted to Search Console and has been referenced in your robots, then just get rid of the other one. But essentially, it's not too much of a problem.
Great. Does anybody else have anything to add to that one?
Just to say that for slightly not answering the question, but a really large sites, particularly news publishing sites, you will have multiple sitemaps. I know it's not answering the question because it's not duplicate, but when you do have a lot of pages, then you do want to categorize and have multiple sitemaps as good practice.
Great. Joe?
Nothing else. I think we can go to the next question.
Okay, cool. We're going to end with our regular question, which is, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment? Who would like to go first? Shelley, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO?
Oh my God, there's so much going on at the moment. And I know that a lot of people think the sky's falling down. And it's, oh my God, SEO overviews, SEO's dead, it's all ending. And my site's been wiped out and oh, help me. But actually, this is really exciting times. And I see a real correlation between the beginning of the industry and particularly when the Florida update happened and it wiped out a lot of websites. And it was exactly the same messaging. People complaining, saying, oh my God, my site's been wiped out, but it's really great information. And what they weren't doing is actually trying to understand why these changes were happening and the actual potential, and they weren't helping themselves to move forward. And I think this is really exciting times we're in. Okay, it's going to change everything and it's making my job so much harder and it's an absolute nightmare. And I am exhausted the last 18 months trying to keep up with all these. I'm excited about these. Thanks, John. But I think it's really exciting times we're going through at the moment. Everything's accelerated, massive advancements, and we have no choice but to embrace it and to jump on board and run with it, or else we're going to get left behind. And SEO is a great industry because it is all about evolving. And I know my editor-in-chief at SEJ hates that word evolution, but I'm going to use it anyway. Evolution it's accelerating right now. It's happening rapidly. So jump on board. It's exciting times. Who knows where things are going to go? That's why the industry is so amazing, because it changes so much and you have to keep moving and learning and evolving and changing. Never stays still. It doesn't get boring. That's why we're all here. We're all adrenaline junkies, I think.
And it keeps us in the job, right? All these changes, which is good. Luke, what about
not?
Or not, yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm also really excited about what's going on at the moment. It keeps us as SEOs on our toes and just thinking about users and the direction that Google's going in and how users are changing. I'm excited to see the evolution of AI overviews and SGEs and see whether my hunch around search prompting is really, are Google doing this as a kind of anticipation of behavior change? Want to see if that kind of sees through and just see how it evolves, really. So yeah, I'm really excited and I'm intrigued to see how users change the way that they search. Yeah, I think it's really exciting times. And I also think there's lots of opportunities as well to be seen, which I'm quite excited about.
Great. Joe, what about you? I could probably guess what you're going to say. What are you most excited about at the moment in terms of SEO?
events. It was great that there's Google I/O and there's some people from Women in Tech SEO going there, like Natalie Slater. Thanks for the opportunity, Google and Women in Tech SEO. Also, there's so many events. There was Search International Social Summit yesterday. I just shared the link. There's Search Africon today. Well done to Bear for organizing that. And I'm organizing the event June 17th in person. And just some chats from everyone. John saying everything that Shelley's saying he's excited about, and the cheese, of course. And also what Luke says. Simon saying, oh, fabulous session with the great responses from Shelley and Luke. Thank you all. And John saying, I guess we'll have to wait for next week for SEO to be dead. No vacation ever. Thank you everyone for joining us. Oh, my sister said, oh, good luck on my swim. I'm doing a 2K swim tomorrow. So I'm excited about that.
That's
Raising
amazing.
money. Yeah, thanks. I'm raising money for the Ronald McDonald House in organization that basically provides respite care that helps families to allow them to go to a room to recover from when they're visiting their children or family members in hospitals. Yeah, raising some money for that Ronald McDonald room in the hospital that we went to when my son was in the hospital. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Can you share the link, Joe?
I will share the link.
Donate
Yeah.
and stuff like that. That's amazing. God, 2K. I struggle to run that, let alone swim. That's amazing. I guess in terms of what am I excited about at the moment, I'm really enjoying SEO office hours, actually. I was just trying to work out, we've been doing this for 6.5 months. We started on the 3rd of November. So thank you everybody for joining us each week and for our special guests and all the questions. Yeah, that's what we always say. It's one of our favorite parts of the working week. Joe?
It is. And today is our 25th session.
Wow.
So yeah, thank you everyone for joining and always coming, and people take the time out their day to interact with us in the chat. So it's really great. And people from, it's an international SEO office hours as well, which I really like.
Yeah. Okay, great. We'll finish there. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to the people that asked questions as well. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just sharing the chat now. Just
Oh yeah, sorry.
we'll
Thank
just
you.
check on collaborar. But everyone just goes to this link and then they can click on the term collaborar and then they can donate directly to the Ronald McDonald Room at Vall d'Hebron Hospital in Barcelona.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.